You ever wonder even how Lewis and Clark could even do it? You don't even know how big of a challenge it is until you actually try it yourself. If you even breathe on the powder will not ignite. If it's a rainy day, forget it. So how does this stuff even work? The flint strikes the steel, the sparks flow down the steel and into the pan of powder. Now you may not realize this, but the flint is only good for about 25 strikes. So once the powder in the pan burns, it goes into the barrel. So there's 2 burns, one in the pan and then one in the barrel. So you have to let the first one go and hold it until the second one goes. So you're starting to see that a lot of things can go wrong. The flint is held in with a piece of leather to make sure that the flint does not slip. All the sparks run down this spoon and hit the powder in the pan. When people are talking about dry powder, that is what they meant. It is so important to have dry powder. When you're out there in the woods, you will change out the powder in this pan every half hour. And when you remove the powder, you do it with your shirt. You would never blow it out because of the humidity in your breath. I bet you're starting to have a lot more respect for Lewis and Clark and what they had to go through. Now the lead balls that go into this are about 1/2 inch. Lewis and Clark were about half that size. So when you read about them having problems with the grizzlies, well, now you know why. Just imagine if they saw a grizzly bear and it was raining. I suppose you could try throwing a rock. This thing's pretty heavy. You could try swinging this at it. Now when you store this, you want to store it with all the springs completely unloaded. Squeeze your finger on one of these to release most of the tension, and the last one will take the last bit out. Let's go ahead and pull this thing apart. This rod has a few different purposes. Once you have the powder, the patch, and the ball in, this will pack it all in. Now this barrel comes off in a jiffy because it has to. This thing has to be cleaned before you go to bed every night. If not, the powder will totally corrode everything and it'll be completely unoperational. Once you get the back pin out, you work the front pin out, and you don't want to mix these up. One is just a little bigger than the other, so we have them marked. Then you'll see how easy everything comes apart. The ability to be able to remove the wood from the metal is critical for fast cleaning. You just didn't forget to maintain it. It's kind of like your livelihood. These pins make it really easy to put all back together. It's just like anything else. Once you do it enough, you could do it in your sleep. Now you just didn't have one kind of powder. You have a fine and a coarse. The fine powder goes into the pan, the coarse into the barrel. See, the real fine ground up powder would ignite quickly. Now you can see that this powder is kept in a Ziploc bag. Imagine a single Ziploc bag. Imagine what that would have been worth to them back then. Just the moisture from the air gets into this powder. You need to dry it in the sun and make sure that it stays dry. So here's a couple of gizmos. This big one measures powder for the barrel. You move this little rod, that way you get the exact amount you need. And every single barrel was a little different, so you had to calibrate it to the barrel you had. If you borrowed somebody else's, you'd have to know how much. There's a lot of skill involved. This smaller one puts powder in the pan. Each time you push the tip, it adds a little powder. And remember, this is the fine powder that ignites a lot easier. Fine powder in the pan, coarse in the barrel. A lot of this powder back then was made from bat droppings. People would mine it out of the caves. Now that's a whole nother story. Now this next tool gets everything all lined up and started. Then the rod takes it all the way down and gets it compacted. Now there's several different attachments for the rod. This one moves your cleaning swab back and forth. The next one gets the patch out if you need it out. And the last one gets the ball out. It actually screws into the lead and you can extract it. You don't want to screw it in too far or it'll be really hard to get out. Just enough to grab it and get it out of there. So as you can see, there's a lot to know. There's a lot of skills involved. So I bet you have a lot more respect for Lewis and Clark now. and what people had to do that formed this country. Well, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.